the FAA, cartels, and the Pentagon. What changed in U.S.-Mexico relations? Something important just changed between the United States and Mexico, not with an announcement, not with a treaty, not even with a speech. It changed quietly through technical decisions, security moves, and political signals that most people are looking at separately. But when you put them together, a pattern appears, and that pattern tells us one thing. U.S.-Mexico relations have entered a new phase. Let me explain why. First of all, the FAA, the technical signal, we shall call it. It started in the technical world. The FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, launched evaluations and warnings that are officially regulatory. These are not political statements, we're told. They are not threats, we're told. They are only technical procedures. But here's the reality. When aviation, tourism, logistics, and investor confidence are involved, technical decisions are never neutral. The FAA actions affect routes, they affect investments, they affect perceptions. And perceptions drive economic behavior. So even without political language, the message was read politically. That was the first signal. Now, the second signal, criminal transfers, cooperation without a shared narrative. This was the second signal. Mexico transferred 37 alleged high-profile criminals to the United States. Mexico framed it clearly, a sovereign decision, part of its national security strategy, we were told. Washington welcomed it as cooperation. But notice what did not happen. There was no joint announcement, no shared explanation, no unified narrative. Still, the meaning was clear. Coordination is happening, even if both sides describe it very differently. And that difference matters. Because in today's U.S.-Mexico relationship, the narrative matters almost as much as the action itself. Let's talk about Sinaloa now, the territory as a message. So at the same time, attention returned to Sinaloa, not as a local issue, but as a symbol. Mexico deployed more than 1,600 military and special forces personnel to areas like Culiacan and Mazatlan, responding to cartel-related violence. Formally, this is a domestic security move. Contextually, it happened alongside the FAA evaluations and intensified security cooperation. And Sinaloa does matter because anything that happens there is watched closely in Washington, in security agencies, and across international media. Sinaloa doesn't just send a message internally, it sends a message across the border. Now let's talk about the fourth signal. The Pentagon, escalation in language, not in troops. So the fourth signal arrived. The Department of Defense, the Pentagon, placed Latin America more clearly within its strategic focus on transnational crime. There was no announcement of military intervention, no talk of U.S. troops in Mexico, but the language shifted. And in international politics, language is an early warning system. When an issue moves from technical regulators to defense institutions, it doesn't automatically mean crisis. It does mean priority. It means the issue is now being viewed from a higher strategic level. Now let's go on to signal 5, presidential level, the clearest signal of all. So the clear signal of all is a phone call between Donald Trump and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. We don't know all the details, we almost never do, but the fact of the call itself matters because it marks the moment when this issue moved from agencies and institutions into direct presidential conversation. So, FAA evaluations, criminal transfers, Sinaloa deployments, Pentagon rhetoric, and a presidential call. These are not random events. They are stacked signals. And this brings us to the central paradox. In practice, the United States and Mexico are cooperating more than they have in years. Intelligence sharing, security coordination, operational collaboration. But publicly, distrust still dominates the discourse. Political narratives talk about pressure, concessions, and threats, often designed for domestic politics, not accuracy. All of this happens while millions of Mexicans living in the United States feel the consequences without ever being part of the conversation. People in airports, in logistics, in construction, in services, people who sustain the binational economy but rarely appear in political storytelling. So here's the real risk for Mexico and the United States today. It's not the cooperation. The risk is failing to explain that cooperation, failing to define its limits, failing to control its narrative. Because when one country doesn't explain what it's doing, others will do it for them, and rarely in their favor. The U.S.-Mexico relationship isn't breaking. It's not being renegotiated, but it has entered a new phase where technical, security, and political decisions are aligned in time. Ignoring that alignment would be a great mistake. That's why informed conversation matters for Mexico, for the United States, and for the millions of people, those immigrants, who live between both countries. That's what we try to do at mexicoenlapiel.org. Please follow us once again in mexicoenlapiel.org, and please read my article, my full article, in El Sol de México. Thank you.